Hey, what's up guys? Mike Red Fox. This is a public service announcement to make sure you are powering your GPU mining rig safely. The reason I'm talking about this again right now is just there's been a lot of interest in people mining Ravencoin, moving rigs over there, testing it, thinking about moving rigs over there with everything that's happening on Ethereum right now with EIP 1559 and the move to proof of stake in the short term future. There's one thing that you got to know about Ravencoin's algorithm, which is called Kawpow. It uses a lot more wattage and power than Ethash, which is Ethereum's algorithm. And if your rig isn't planned and prepped to take that into account, it could be potentially dangerous for not only your GPUs, but you, your family, your house, or wherever you're mining out of. So I have a long video going over all the foundational knowledge of how to power your GPU mining rigs. I highly recommend that you check it out. I'll link it up above and down in the description. In this one, I'm going to do a quick overview just to get that info out there to you, but I still highly recommend you check that out. Get that foundational knowledge that'll not only help you now, but in the future when you're building more mining rigs. So our example GPU here is an RTX 3080. Know this about this GPU. It can pull a max TDP of 320 watts if ran full tilt. Now, I know you're mining on Ethereum right now, and this GPU, if you have one, is probably only doing 215, maybe 230 watts. When it's on Kawpow, I need you to know it's going to pull more than that. In fact, almost every GPU that you likely have is going to pull more on the Kawpow algorithm than it would pull on Ethereum's Ethash algorithm. And if your rigs aren't wired to take that into account, if you're not using the right power supplies to take that into account, you could be in for a really bad time. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the riser, because that's the most confusing thing. I know it was for me when I first started mining. And I have an example riser here. What you can see, it has a couple connectors on it, right? It has your familiar PCIe up there, and also has your Molex right down here. Your riser might have an additional connector if it's an older one. It might have a SATA connector on it. If there's anything that you're going to learn out of this video, it's do not use SATA. In fact, you could stop this video right now if that is the thing that you take away, and I'll be pretty happy about it. Let's talk about SATA. So your SATA connector looks like this, right? And it's traditionally used to power hard drives, not graphics cards. The standard on this cable is it's only rated for 54 watts on the pins that are in there carried over this cable. Know this about your GPU. Every GPU is rated to pull up to 75 watts over this connector, which obviously connects to your riser. And if on the other end of that is a SATA cable that can't do that amount of wattage, well, what's going to happen? Those pins are going to heat up, that cable housing is going to melt and potentially cause a fire and be really dangerous for you. So just do not use it. So the second connector that you have on there is going to be Molex. Now, the Molex cable looks just like this. So it's got 4 pins in there, and one of those pins for sure connects back to the 12-volt rail on your power supply. The problem with Molex is there's no clear standard. In fact, this connector has been made by different companies over time. And I've been trying to figure out for almost a year now what the spec for that pin in there is, what's the amps that it can run, and there's just no clear standard on it. So if there's no clear standard on this, I do not feel safe using this in my mining rigs. So the last connector that you're going to have on there is going to be PCIe, right? Looks just like that. Same one that your GPU uses on its top power plugs that you see right there. And so this is the best cable in the world. This is the cable that you should be using. You could, again, stop right here. If you walk away and you power all your rigs off of PCIe, all your risers off of PCIe, then I've done my job here. Let me tell you why this is the best cable that you should use. It has a clear standard. So inside there are 3 pins that connect back to the 12-volt rail of your power supply. Each pin is rated for 8 amps each. So to do the wattage, you got to do some math. 3 times 8 times 12 volts means that this cable can do a maximum wattage of 288 watts. That is under ideal conditions. That means ideal temperatures, short cable lengths. That is not a goal to hit. Do not accept that challenge. You still want to take into account the 80% rule, and I still run real conservative over PCIe. You also may have this horrific cable. This horrific cable is SATA to PCIe. Guess what? You're still limited by the 54 watts that connector can do. And you may be really tempted to use this if you're out of maybe PCIe slots on your power supply. But I'm telling you right now, do not use this cable. Throw this in the garbage. This should never be included with risers or anything else for that matter, because it just can't be run safely. I hope you're not using this. And if you are, I hope that you change right away to use just PCIe. So the last thing you got to take into account is your power supply. And the example I want to have here is a 1000 watt EVGA ATX power supply. And the one thing you got to know about your power supply, as well as your cables, is the electrical standard of run it at 80% of its full maximum capacity. And that is to account for electrical spikes and also efficiency. So that means I can only put 800 watts on this power supply. And if I'm doing the right thing here and taking into account the full TDP of my 3080 right now, that means I can only run 2 of these cards on one 1000 watt power supply, taking into account the motherboard and processor and RAM and all the other components safely. And so then you're going to get into a place where you're like, Mike, well, how am I supposed to power all these GPUs? This is kind of getting ridiculous. The answer is buy more power supplies, buy higher wattage power supplies, or ultimately buy a server power supply. Do not be intimidated by them. I will link my video on them up in the card above, and I'll put it down in the description as well. But that's it, guys. I want you to walk away with being safe. Use PCIe for everything. Check out my full video on all of this. If you're moving off of Ethereum to any other algorithm, especially Kawpow, know that your GPUs will take more power or are very likely to take more power. I want you to go look at your setup, evaluate your setup with the things I talked about in this video and my longer video. Just make sure that you're safe. This is how you take care of yourself first. I hope you liked the video. Hit the like button if you did. Subscribe for more content on GPU mining. Join my Discords linked in the description below if you have any questions on this or anything else. Also leave some comments if you have any questions. I will answer every single one. I promise you that. And as always, please take care of yourself and be safe and take care of each other. And I will see you in the next video.